Bobby, what are we looking for?
Yeah, we're going to be out there at OTAs today. In fact, before I walk out there and before I share some of the stuff that we're going to be looking for out there, I'm curious for you guys, what is it you want to know about? Like when I step out there today, when we walk in here tomorrow morning, what's like your first question we're going to say? What did this look like? Who was there? Who's doing this? What are the big things you're looking for?
I want to know about Jaden Blue. I want to continue to know about Pickens, and I want to know about Milton.
Michael Parsons.
I know you want to know about Joe Milton, Chop.
And what you can tell me about the rookies, the other rookie class. That's what I'm most interested in.
How majestic are his incompletions when you're next to him on the field?
If we get Joe Milton, if we get Joe Milton today, I'm going to have to do something to just tell him how much Chop loves him. I'm going to have to get some...
What's some Tennessee insight? Are there like some places that still exist around there?
I don't know if they still exist, man. Copper Cellar? I have no idea. Is the Copper Cellar still there?
I'll
Gus's Good Times Deli?
Gus's. There we go. All right, I'll be sure to ask him about those. Yeah, I mean...
Cool beans.
We talked earlier this week about some of the things that I was going to be looking for while we were out there. I'm interested to see how Dak's health is progressing because he looked, surprisingly, I thought, pretty good last week in terms of just where he physically was at. And he's getting closer and closer. How does, some of the other guys who are coming back from injuries or who are rehabbing, how do they look? We saw DeMarvion Overshown out there. I heard some people talking about Overshown and saying, Overshown's been, when he's been out here and working out, he looks like he's coming along pretty nicely.
When Wanye Thomas tweeted the other day, football is fun again, Overshown followed up on that and said, told y'all.
Yeah, there you go. So it's a different culture. Like I said, you guys have seen
Gus's Deli is still open, by the way.
All right.
You'll see it when we're out in Oxnard, as long as the same structure is being applied. It's when practice started last week, it was the oddest vibe. It was almost like that scene in Remember the Titans where they come out and they're doing like they're dancing whatever.
That's a good movie, good football movie, Chop.
It's a great football movie.
Have to watch it someday.
So when they're coming out there and doing the dance to like during the warm up, it felt like that almost. Like it felt like that energy. It was very.
What?
I'd never seen anything like it at their practice before. It was honestly there. You had a bunch of like coaches were dancing, players. They were all hyped. They were chattering. So it was a different vibe out there the other day. Tommy Yarsh over at DallasCowboys.com. We talked about some things earlier this week that I was wanting to see out at OTAs. But Tommy Yarsh had the 5 questions to watch ahead of the second media viewing of Cowboys OTAs, and the number one item.
Can I say the Tommy note you told me the other day?
Oh yeah.
Did you hear this?
Maybe.
You were probably right next to me, as usual.
It'd be great to hear it again for the first time.
Tommy is out there every day in a suit. Is it a suit jacket or a full suit?
No, he's dropped the jacket. He's realized to drop the jacket, but he used to walk out there in the jacket. He still walks out there in the dress shirt and like the dress shoes and the slacks.
No matter the weather.
Nope. It was like it was
the Tom Landry of the Cowboy beat.
Oh, we need to get him a fedora. Have him wear one out at practice. He said he's like, I showed up like this. I thought that was kind of like the vibe. He's like, and
why
then
did he change the next day though?
Because he said he realized over like when it really set in like I
can stand out amongst these schlubs.
No, he said what it said. He's like, I kind of felt like I'd set an expectation, and now it's going to look like I'm slacking off if I don't keep wearing it.
See?
He's such a Tommy is the oldest 24-year-old I've ever met. That guy is 50 years old.
There is a we have lost our like formality.
Yeah,
our,
NBA coaches
as a people. Yeah.
NBA
coaches look like they're going to Hawaii now. Just like you're walking down to the gym, but he's making the rest of us look bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes us all look like schlubs, like Sean said. All right, so these are his notes or what he's looking forward to today, and number one is the guy we were just talking about, Joe Milton. He says, can Joe Milton bounce back from a rocky first practice? In one of his first practices as a Cowboy since the team acquired him, Joe Milton had a roller coaster day with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions during the media viewing period in OTA practice. In several instances, Milton struggled to get through his reads, and he was forced to roll out and enter the scramble drill, which isn't the worst thing for his skill set, but being able to see the field from the pocket is certainly an area of his game where improvement will be needed. And that was one of the things that we were talking about earlier this week is just it all looks like it's happening much faster than he can see it. And that's to be expected sometimes for young players, but if it's overwhelming, it's really hard to shake it.
And if it's over, were they going up against DBs like one-on-ones or
No, they
against
had
air and space?
No, they were doing like 7-on-7 and then like some team stuff, but it wasn't one-on-ones.
Yeah. If I'm hearing you having a rough mini camp and OTA practice, that makes me a little bit worried for the more live bullets in Oxnard.
Although literally in some corners, if you look at the way that Dak entered the league, Dak was the first 3 years he was awful at practices. Like, I mean, it looked like a third string quarterback when he was out there practicing.
Jason Garrett beating him in the throwing contest.
I mean, it really was. I mean, he was the quintessential gamer, right? Like, he just doesn't.
Yeah,
which he's developed into a good practice player now, and so I mean, it's certainly
he's become a better passer.
Yeah,
I think as a practice player, the better true passers are the better practice players because everything is on schedule.
Yeah, and I will say, Sean, when you were asking at the end of last week, or we were talking about the S2 cognition test came up for quarterbacks, that test that everybody said CJ Stroud was awful at. That's why teams do place such an emphasis on it, though, is because of people like Joe Milton, where it's like, how quickly are you, is this all moving too fast for you? Because the S2 is all about how quickly are you processing everything that's in front of you. Number 2 on this list is George Pickens picking things up as quickly as the Cowboys say he is. We played that last week, that clip from Shottenheimer where he had talked about, yeah, George is picking things up. He's definitely behind some of the veterans still, which is natural. He's going to be. He just got acquired, but he's picking things up quickly. And Tommy says one aspect about George Pickens is that his new coaches and teammates were complimentary of how early he was and how he's approached the film room and working to get up to speed with the offense. In last Tuesday's practice, it was clear that Pickens was still getting a feel for his new team, learning the ropes and focusing more on stepping back and observing how things were meant to be done, which I think is totally fine, especially during these. Honestly, I won't care if we don't see him doing a whole hell of a lot until training camp. If this is all study time and he's just getting steps right and things like that, totally fine with that. That's not a big deal. But last week was, I don't know if you guys were surprised. I was a little surprised I wasn't coming in here on Wednesday morning and talking more about, oh, George Pickens out at practice. Like, oh man, he made some big play, or oh, they were really targeting him. It was really clearly he's focusing on the very basic steps of getting the offense down right now. Next one.
I would also like to hear about Shottenheimer running around, or because I didn't notice Mike a lot out at practice. I would have to search him out. Like, he wasn't that much of a vocal presence. This isn't any knock. People have different styles. I just didn't notice him much. So I want to know if Shotty is like the cheerleader running up and down. Is he more like McCarthy? Where is he spending the majority of his time? Because he is the offensive play caller.
Last week he sprinted out. He was sprinting on the field, and he had his visor, his visor on.
Backwards.
He was wearing it backwards. He had the backwards visor on, and he was running, and he was full of energy. And so, I mean, it's clearly a tone he's setting. All that energy that exists at practice is a tone like that's very intentional from them. Number 3, will Deron Bland spend more time at slot corner? This is something that there's not anything I don't think that's building in terms of negativity. But for somebody like Deron Bland, who's just, hey, you know, I'm here to do whatever it is, and he's still got that same energy of saying, yeah, I'm here to play the nickel if you need me to. It was a little interesting to hear him say he'd rather not. So he said, yeah, I'll do whatever. I'd rather play outside, but I'll do whatever. It's like, okay, that's, I mean, I feel like from Deron Bland, that's pretty definitive. Like, I don't want to do that. Yeah. If you can avoid me doing that, please let me. But I mean, he was really good there his rookie season when he had to step in. He was not doing that consistently at Fresno State or at Sacramento State, either one of those. And so when he stepped in and had to do it in 23, he had a lot of success, or 22, he had a lot of success. And so I think they're comfortable having him play there, but it is a little bit like, I'd rather play outside. Let's figure out the nickel a little bit more, which is honestly something they still need to iron out.
Zach Martin of DBs.
I mean, same sort of, like, at least publicly, same sort of disposition of, I'd rather not, but yeah, I'll do whatever. Number 4.
Except Zach was like, no, I don't.
No, not a chance.
Well, that's what I said publicly. Number 4, can Kaiir Elam cement himself into a starting role at cornerback? One of the reasons why Bland moving inside could be a conversation is if Kaiir Elam sees a resurgence. The former first-round pick struggled towards the end of his time in Buffalo, but he has a chance to reestablish himself with an organization that loved what they saw out of him at Florida. Kaiir Elam is exclusively outside. He's not playing inside at the nickel. That's not happening. So if he's here and if he's present, and if you've got Kalen Carson or when Diggs comes back, and that's your solidified corner group, Bland is naturally going to be the one that ends up kicking inside. But Elam is going to be a big part of this, watching how committed he is. That last week we saw there were times Andrew Booth was out there with the first team corners. Like, I mean, they've got they're just light on bodies right now, and guys coming back.
Why is Andrew Booth still here?
Because, well, I mean, you got to cut somebody. So you got your warm bodies that are basically holding things down throughout the summer, and then you get into training camp, get guys healthy. But I mean, you're still waiting on Josh Butler and Trayvon Diggs.
I can't think of Andrew Booth without thinking of that Maryland basketball player.
Keith Booth.
Was it Keith or Calvin? I can't remember.
Calvin Booth was the Mavericks center.
Mavericks said Keith Booth.
Keith Booth. Joe Smith, baby.
So Kaiir Elam I thought Kaiir Elam was going to be really, really good coming out of college, and it's not worked out for him yet.
Said he has not felt the culture in his career so far. Shots fired at Sean McDermott.
I don't think Shottenheimer.
Maybe it was Diggs.
Yeah, he's not going to make some of the same comparisons that
you don't think so?
McDermott did to his Buffalo team, like comparing 9/11.
It's not very, it's not very 9/11 around here.
Nope, not at all. And then the last thing
smooth flying around here.
The last thing that he's looking at is who rises to the top opposite Micah Parsons. So we probably haven't talked enough about this. They're really deep on pass rushers right now. They drafted Donovan Ezeraku. They had a lot of high hopes for Sam Williams. They've got Dante Fowler here, who was double-digit sack. Everybody keeps forgetting, I think, that Dante Fowler's here again.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're talking about a lot of guys who are pretty skilled pass rushers.
Well, in theory, you have two knowns and you have two unknowns. Sam Williams, to me, is still an unknown.
I think Sam Williams, though, you could fairly say, has like very clear pass rush skill at the very least. Like so I'm just saying they're very skilled, very skilled rushers.
Gregory.
Yeah, that's all I mean. Very skilled rushers.
Yeah. So, but I'm not like, oh my God, they're super. I'm not going to say they're super deep or deep at pass rush yet until I see Ezeraku and Sam Williams not be a knucklehead.
And that's the thing that Tommy Arch wants to see is just like, okay, well, Micah's potentially.
And I'm not talking about Ezeraku as a knucklehead.
Right.
I'm talking about Sam.
Right. As long as Micah Parsons isn't on the field, how do they start working through those rotations? Who kind of gets an edge? Because I mean, also we didn't even mention there because he's not necessarily like a pass rush specialist, but they also just spent a second-round pick on Marshawn Kneeland. So they've invested a lot in edge rushers and having guys here. And so how that kind of shakes out.
I'm excited for it. I'm not certain about it.
Yeah, but it's intriguing at least. You feel like there's a lot of upside there potentially. And so Tommy says he's going to be keeping an eye on how that rotation works out, who maybe starts to separate themselves and really pop.